The rain started before dawn, soft and uncertain, like it wasn't sure it wanted to fall. By 6, the streets of Willow Creek were slick with it, the kind of gray, sleepy drizzle that made the whole town feel like it was still dreaming. Inside a 2-story house on Maple Street, Daniel Harper stood in the kitchen, waiting for the coffee machine to finish its lazy dripping. His reflection stared back at him in the dark window, unshaven, eyes heavy, shirt untucked. The digital clock on the oven blinked 6:04 a.m. Upstairs, he heard movement. A soft thump. The squeak of a bathroom door. Then silence. His wife, Lena, was up. Usually, that sound comforted him, her quiet, early morning steps, the rhythm of their mornings intertwined. But lately, everything about their routines felt off. She used to hum while getting ready. Now she moved through the house like a ghost, careful not to make a sound. Daniel tried to push the thought aside. He poured his coffee, burned his tongue on the first sip, and turned toward the window again. Across the street, the neighbors' sprinklers came on, even though it was raining. He watched the mist rise and disappear into the gray air, his mind somewhere else entirely. He didn't notice her come down. "Morning," Lena said softly. He turned. She stood by the stairway, already dressed, hair brushed, makeup done, that faint perfume he used to love so much but lately had started to associate with something else. She looked beautiful, as always, calm, polished, unreachable. "You're up early," he said. She smiled without showing her teeth. "Big day at work. Presentation." He nodded. She'd been saying that a lot lately. Presentations. Meetings. Late nights. He used to know the names of her colleagues. Now, they were just vague nouns. "Need me to drop you off?" he asked. She shook her head, too quickly. "No, it's fine. I'll take my car." Something fluttered in his stomach, that small, familiar unease that had been living inside him for weeks. He forced a smile. "Okay. Good luck." "Thanks." She kissed his cheek, a light, practiced touch, then grabbed her purse and keys. And just like that, she was gone. The sound of the door closing echoed in the house. Daniel sat down with his coffee, staring at the half-empty cup. The silence pressed in around him, heavy and strange. For years, he had thought their marriage was solid, not perfect, but strong in the way that time can make two people fit together, even around the cracks. They'd been married 12 years. Met in college. Built a life together, a mortgage, 2 cars, shared vacations, the comfort of knowing how the other took their coffee. But something had changed in the last few months. Lena had grown distant. Restless. Her laughter had become rare, the kind that used to fill the room now sounded forced, or worse, absent. She spent more time at work. More time on her phone. And once, when he walked into the room unexpectedly, she'd minimized a message so fast it made his heart stutter. He didn't ask. Not yet. Because asking meant he might be right. That evening, she came home later than usual. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the yellow streetlights. Daniel was on the couch, laptop open, but he wasn't really working. The TV flickered silently in the background, a rerun of some show they used to watch together. When the door opened, he looked up. "Hey," he said casually. "Hey." She slipped off her heels, her movements careful, composed. "Sorry, it was a long day." He studied her face, the faint smudge of lipstick, the faint smell of wine, and something else, something sharp, like cologne. "Presentation go well?" Her eyes darted away for a second. "Yeah. Really well." He nodded. "Good." There was a pause, one of those heavy silences that didn't belong in a marriage. "I'm gonna shower," she said, heading upstairs. When the water started running, Daniel exhaled. His chest felt tight. He glanced at her purse, left carelessly on the chair by the door. He stared at it for a long moment. His hand twitched. Then, before he could stop himself, he opened it. Inside, wallet, lipstick, a folded receipt. He unfolded it. The Willow Inn. 2 glasses of wine. A seafood platter for 2. The time, 6:47 p.m. She'd told him the meeting ran late. Daniel sat down. The world seemed to narrow to that small, crumpled piece of paper in his hands. The rain started again outside. He didn't confront her that night. Or the next. Instead, he watched. Listened. Noticed things he'd ignored before. The new phone password. The way she turned away when she texted. The late nights that stretched later and later. And the worst part, how easy she smiled at her screen when she thought he wasn't looking. He began to feel like a stranger in his own life, like he'd been written out of a story still being told without him. A week later, he followed her. He told himself it was just to be sure, that he needed proof before accusing her. But deep down, he already knew. Lena left home at 6:30, saying she was meeting a client at a restaurant downtown. Daniel waited 5 minutes, then got in his car. The streets were damp again, reflecting the amber glow of streetlights. He followed her carefully, staying back, headlights dimmed. She turned off Main Street, into the parking lot of the Willow Inn. Daniel parked a block away. He sat in the dark for a few minutes, staring through the rain-speckled windshield, trying to convince himself not to go in. But something in him had already broken. He got out of the car. The restaurant was warm, candlelit, crowded enough for anonymity. He stood by the bar, pretending to look at the menu. And then he saw her. Lena, in a soft blue dress he hadn't seen before. Laughing. Head tilted. Across from her sat a man, maybe mid-30s, sharp suit, easy smile. He reached across the table, brushed his hand over hers. Daniel's throat went dry. The world around him went soundless, just the sight of that hand, her smile, the quiet betrayal of intimacy. He stood there for a long moment, frozen, until she suddenly looked up. Their eyes met. Her face went white. The man turned, confused. Daniel didn't speak. He didn't make a scene. He just turned and walked out. Outside, the rain had started again, heavier this time, a hard, cold sheet of it that soaked him before he reached the car. He sat behind the wheel, trembling. Not from anger. Not yet. Just from the cold shock of seeing what he'd always known but never wanted to face. She came home after midnight. He was waiting in the dark. When she opened the door, he flicked on the lamp. Lena froze. Her face was pale, her hair damp, her expression unreadable. "Where were you?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. "Daniel." "Don't," he cut her off. His voice was calm, but there was a tremor beneath it. "Just, don't lie." She looked down. "I saw you," he said. Silence. Then, finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry." The words hung in the air like smoke. "For how long?" he asked. She closed her eyes. "A few months." He nodded slowly. "Who is he?" She hesitated, then, "Ethan." "From work." Daniel felt something inside him, a weight, a shape, crumble quietly. "Why?" he whispered. Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know. It just happened." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "It just happened. Daniel, I didn't mean." He stood up, shaking. "You didn't mean to. You kissed him. You met him. You lied to me every damn day." She started crying, but he couldn't feel anything anymore. Not even rage. Just a hollow kind of numbness. He walked past her, grabbed his jacket, and left the house. He spent the night driving. Nowhere in particular, just miles of dark highway, the rain chasing him like a shadow. By dawn, he found himself parked by Lake Erie, watching the pale light spread over the water. His phone buzzed again and again, her name lighting up the screen, but he didn't answer. He just sat there, breathing, feeling the shape of his life collapse quietly inside him. The divorce came quickly. No shouting, no drama, just paperwork, lawyers, silence. She moved out first, taking half of everything and all of the warmth with her. Daniel stayed in the house on Maple Street. The quiet was unbearable at first. But after a while, it became familiar, like a wound he could live with. Sometimes, he'd catch himself staring at the empty side of the bed, remembering the sound of her laughter, the smell of her perfume. But then he'd remember the receipt. The restaurant. The blue dress. And he'd let it go. Months passed. Seasons changed. One evening, as the sun set behind the houses, Daniel sat on the porch with a beer, watching the streetlights flicker on. Across the road, the neighbors' kids played with their bikes, laughter echoing down the block. He smiled faintly. He wasn't healed, not completely. Maybe never. But he was alive. And that, somehow, was enough. When he finally went inside, the house didn't feel so quiet anymore. Just peaceful.